All right, welcome back everyone to our water fluoridation investigation. So many of you have been asking me for an update regarding the injunction that I'm going to be filing soon with the Henrico Court. So for those of you who are just joining me, I sent Henrico County a cease and desist a couple weeks ago, asking them to point to me the state law that authorizes the county of Henrico to put this chemical drug into the drinking water. And they did not respond back, right? Any reasonable person would say that if a county is putting a chemical drug in the drinking water that affects roughly, 330,000 residents, they would have the courtesy of pointing to the statutory authority to do so. But they don't have the statutory authority, which is why they can't respond back. So I've been working on this injunction, and one of the things that I was thinking about today was when the judge says, who's in charge, what's going to be the answer, right? So for those of you who may be just joining us for the first time, in Virginia, we operate under what's called the Dillon rule, which means that localities cannot put fluoride into the drinking water unless there is a state law that authorizes the locality to put this in the drinking water. There is no state law that granted Henrico County the authority to put the chemical drug in the water. Okay, so that's going to be a big problem for Henrico. So if the judge says, okay, who's in charge, right? Well, that's going to be interesting how Henrico County is going to respond, because for over a year I've been trying to get anybody in Henrico County to take responsibility for this wonder drug that they're putting in the water. But nobody wants to take responsibility, right? So in many ways, people would say that it is the Board of Supervisors who's responsible, because you would imagine that this is a legislative act, right? And so that's what the Board of Supervisors does. They make legislation. They pass ordinances. But the Board of Supervisors has been very clever and has never taken responsibility for the fluoride being in the drinking water. They've never passed an ordinance, and they can't because the state law doesn't grant them the authority to pass an ordinance, right? So that's probably why they haven't passed an ordinance. The Board of Supervisors has not done so much as a referendum. There's no record that I have found, and I've done a FOIA request to make sure, but there's no record that the Board of Supervisors has ever even mentioned water fluoridation. Okay, so there's nothing in the record. So they have decided they say my name's Bennett and I ain't in it, right? So they want to make sure they cannot be held accountable. So how is this being done? Well, it's being done on the administrative level. So who is responsible for the fluoride being in the drinking water if this is being done on the administrative level? And the answer is the county manager. So that's going to be John Vitulkas. So when the judge says, okay, who's in charge here? And Henrico's like, we're still trying to figure this out, right? So that's what Henrico County, Jody Rogish says. We're still trying to figure out who's in charge and who's making the decision. I can raise my hand and say, I know, pick me. Whoops. Pick me. The person who's ultimately responsible for the drug being in the drinking water is the county manager, right? Because this is being done on an administrative level. So the way it works in Henrico is we have state laws and then we have ordinances. And the state law essentially says that the county manager can hire whatever DPU director that he wishes. So the county manager, John Vitulkas, hired Bentley Chan, who is the DPU director. And the DPU director unilaterally made a decision in December of 2024 to start putting fluoride into the drinking water, okay? And because Bentley Chan is underneath John Vitulkas has to take responsibility for Bentley Chan's actions, right? So when the judge says who has decision-making authority, it's gonna be John Vitulkas. He's at the top of the pecking order. He is the one who's ultimately responsible for this chemical drug being in the drinking water. And what's interesting is because this is being done on the administrative level, the Board of Supervisors can't actually interfere with this. And I'm going to show you the state law to explain what I mean. We're going to be looking at the Code of Virginia 15.2-702, 1502-703. And essentially, the Board of Supervisors, if I'm understanding it correctly, cannot interfere with they can't bypass the county manager and tell Bentley Chan to stop putting fluoride in the drinking water, right? So that puts John Vitulkas in a very precarious situation where he is ultimately the reason why there's fluoride in the drinking water, why there continues to be fluoride in the drinking water. Now, this is very concerning, I will say, because a federal judge has ruled that this poses an unreasonable risk of injury, right? So currently, the county manager, along with the DPU director, who's following orders of the county manager, is putting children at risk, right? The federal judge says this poses an unreasonable risk of injury, even at the so-called optimal level, okay? So these two men are putting children at risk. The other piece of information that's going to be problematic is that in October 31st of 2025, right? We're in 2026. October 31st of 2025, the FDA came out and banned fluoride for children under the age of 3, banned ingestible fluoride tablets and fluoride drugs. So currently, if a mother wanted to get a prescription for their 2-year-old to put a fluoride tablet in the water, the mother is forbidden and the doctor is forbidden. But the Henrico County Waterworks are doing it. The DPU directors are doing it. The county manager is doing it, right? So those two things aren't reconciling with each other. Also, the FDA banned the sale of ingestible fluoride for children who are at low risk of tooth decay and at moderate risk of tooth decay, okay? So this doesn't look good for the county manager, John Vitulkas, and for the DPU director and the waterworks operators, everyone in the chain of command, if you will. Because once you know that fluoride harms people, which it does, it causes a type of disfigurement called dental fluorosis. Approximately 70% of the US has some form of dental fluorosis, and it's primarily from ingesting the fluoride, right? So in Virginia, I would imagine that this would constitute as child abuse, right? When you are risking a child's health, you're risking the dental fluorosis and reduced IQ and damage to the microbiome. This seems very problematic, in my opinion. Allegedly, I suppose, is what we have to say. So, yeah, let's take a look at the Code of Virginia, but I just thought that I would remind everyone, because nobody really wants to come forward and take responsibility for this wonder drug being in the drinking water, but the judge is going to want to know who's responsible for this. Why is this in the drinking water? Who's in charge here? And they're not going to have the luxury of saying to the judge, oh, we're still trying to figure this out. I can, essentially say, raise my hand and say, Judge, I can show you exactly who is responsible for this. And it's the county manager and the DPU director who serves underneath the county manager. And when they say, well, what about the Board of Supervisors? I can say, well, the state law says that the Board of Supervisors is not supposed to interfere with the kind of operations, if you will, that it's the county manager. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and I think it will make more sense. So yeah, let's get into it, okay? So we are on the LIS website to look at the Code of Virginia. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Article 2, General Powers, County Manager Plan. This is Code of Virginia 15.2-702, and it says under the county manager plan, all of the legislative powers of the county. So in Henrico, there are 5 Board of Supervisors, and they voted to have John Vitulkus be the county manager. John Vitulkus, he's responsible for carrying out legislative actions. So when the Board of Supervisors votes, for example, to expand water pipes, the county manager must serve at the behest of the board and carry out those duties. The problem that the county has currently is the Board of Supervisors never voted to put fluoride in the drinking water. So the county manager currently, this is being done on an administrative level, and the county manager currently is acting under the color of law, meaning the county manager is acting in a way as if there was a statutory authority and legislative authority when there is not. This is what we call acting under the color of law. You are acting as if there is a law when there is not. A nicer way to frame this is to say that this is what's called an ultra vires act. Okay, so the county manager, he can't just do whatever he wants. He must carry out the duties that have been determined via legislative powers. Okay, So let's go down to 15.2-703. And so essentially, Henrico County would like to pretend as if putting a chemical drug in the drinking water is merely a administrative duty, as if you don't need so much as a legislative action. Okay, so let's look at Code of Virginia 15.2-703, interference by members of board in appointments and removal of personnel. And it says here that neither the board nor any of its members shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any county administrative officers or employees who are appointed by the manager or any of his subordinates. Meaning that when the county manager decides he wants to hire Bentley Chan as the DPU director, the board cannot interfere with that. Okay, so it says that they use the word officers, I believe. Officers, yes, here it is. Okay, so they go on to say, however, the board may express its views and fully and freely discuss with the manager anything pertaining to appointment and removal of such officers and employees, except for the purpose of inquiry and investigation. The board and its members shall deal with county officers and employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the manager solely through the county manager, and neither the board nor any member thereof shall give orders either publicly or privately to any such county officer or employee. In other words, once the Board of Supervisors has voted to build a park, I don't know, expand on water pipes, the Board of Supervisors must go through the county manager to communicate with the DPU director, for example. Okay, so it must solely go through the county manager. There's a hierarchy. Okay, now because the Board of Supervisors has been derelict in their duties regarding water fluoridation, they're essentially, like I said, allowing this to be done on an administrative level. And they are kind of using the Code of Virginia 15.2-703 so to justify not interfering. In other words, when the county manager tells Bentley Chan to keep the fluoride in the drinking water, the Board of Supervisors has taken the position, well, we can't interfere with this. Who cares if there's never been any legislative act? This is an administrative duty. The county manager is responsible for administrative duties. The county manager is responsible for Bentley Chan, and we cannot circumvent the county manager and order Bentley Chan to stop putting fluoride in the drinking water. So they've essentially put the burden on the county manager to say to Bentley Chan, stop putting fluoride in the drinking water. This entire scheme is the most corrupt and dysfunctional thing I have ever come across. The government has no business deciding to put a chemical drug in the drinking water. And they have to know, in my opinion, that it's wrong because none of them wants to take credit for the chemical drug. So anyway, that's those two state laws. Let me show you another one This is going to be 15.2-614, powers and duties of the manager. So it says, as the administrative head of the county government for the board, the manager shall supervise the collections of revenues, guard, adequately all expenditures, secure proper accounting for all funds, safeguard the property of the county, exercise general supervision over all county institutions and agencies. That's going to be DPU. And with the board's approval, coordinate the various activities of the county and unify the management of affairs. Okay, so that's important. I'll show you one more. So here's a little bit more of the Code of Virginia to kind of show you the hierarchy. We've got 15.2-604, general powers of the board. So again, this shows that the Board of Supervisors is the policy determining body. They've never made a policy to do a water fluoridation program. Again, likely because they understand that they don't have the statutory backing. Probably the second reason, too, is that they thought that VDH was forcing them to put fluoride in the drinking water, so they probably didn't even realize that they needed to determine if they had the legislative authority to do this. Then we've got 15.2-609, appointment of the county manager. So that covers how he gets put into place. 15.2-612, manager responsibilities for administration of affairs. Then we go down to 15.2-614, powers and duties of the manager. He's the administrative head. Remember, this is all being done on an administrative level. We have 15.2-615. Again, he's doing everything on an administrative level. Then we've got 15.2-634, Department of Public Utilities. And this says that the Department of Public Utilities, if and when established, shall be under the supervision of a Director of Public Utilities appointed by the county manager. And yeah, so that's it. Okay, so there we have it. Who is responsible for the fluoride being in the drinking water? That's going to be the county manager, John Vitulkis. Now, he is supposed to serve at the pleasure of the board. However, the board has never authorized water fluoridation in the county of Henrico. So has the county manager gone rogue? Has the DPU director gone rogue? Do they want to take responsibility for this? What will they say to the judge? I don't know. It's sure going to be exciting to find out. So stay tuned, and hopefully after I get this injunction filed with the court, then I can go over what I put together, such as the cease and desist and the declaratory judgment. I'm asking for injunctive relief and a writ of mandamus. So, gosh, it's such a mouthful. I find this whole process to be extremely exhausting, but the way it works in America is the citizens are supposed to keep our politicians in order. That is our responsibility, right? So I just view this as my civic duty. And even if I should fail, which I don't believe I will based on all of the records that I have, but let's just say I fail, at least the record will reflect that I did everything in my power to protect the children from ingesting this chemical drug, right? So my conscience is clear. All right, so that is it for today. I will see you next time, and I've got to kind of put together this last little bit. So if the judge would like to understand how it works in Henrico, which I would imagine he already knows, but sometimes you have to state the obvious just to kind of put all the pieces there, because I have to wonder if Henrico County, like, for over a year, Henrico says I don't know who's in charge. I don't know who's responsible. Would they really go before a judge and say, I don't know who's responsible for the fluoride being in the drinking water? Would they do that? Are they going to pretend like it was little fairies that sprinkle hydrofluorosilicic acid into the drinking water? I don't know. I can't envision it. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that, and wish me luck. I will see you next time. Bye, guys.